Enjoy listening to this and other great podcasts from Jacob's Tent? Want even more content from us? Download the Jacob's Tent app today and gain access to the latest videos, teachings, and exclusive content all in one location. Stay connected and up to date with everything happening in the tent with the Jacob's Tent app, available on the App Store, Google Play, or wherever you find your apps.
Unless you've been isolated for several weeks, then you've probably heard about Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, and how some bureaucrats are being rattled by the revelations that are coming to light and perhaps what is yet to be uncovered. In this episode of the Weekly Scroll, we're going to look at these things and how they may be a preview of things to come. And I'm not talking about how the government functions, but what's going to happen when God begins to shake heaven and earth.
Welcome to the Weekly Scroll, sharing biblical thoughts on current events. Scroll through today's top headlines with Bill Cloud as he unravels the political and spiritual implications of the world we live in, all through the lens of Scripture. Now, be encouraged, be challenged, and be ready.
Well, welcome to the Weekly Scroll. In recent weeks, a new government agency, if that's the proper term, Doge, or the Department of Government Efficiency, has created a lot of excitement and, for a lot of politicians and bureaucrats, a fair amount of uneasiness in Washington as its representatives begin to inspect and to assess federal agencies, and especially how these agencies spend taxpayer dollars. As President Donald Trump began his second term, one of the first things he did was to put Elon Musk in charge of rooting out wasteful spending and looking at how they might shrink the size of the federal workforce as part of this dramatic overhaul of government. Of course, this has led to thousands of job cuts and a general shakeup of the way Washington does business. Now, for some people, this is long overdue. It's being cheered on by a lot of people. One congressman, Burgess Owens of Utah, described this effort as an audit that the United States government has, quote, not had for over 200 years, and this is very healthy. He added, what we're seeing right now is what we call accountability. Anyone who's ever run a business understands what it is to have an IRS audit. And then he continued on in saying, we're going to get out all the waste and all the fraud, and those who have been in the mindset of just showing up and not doing their job. They have to show up, bring value, have a good return on investment. And we have a president and a business person, Elon Musk, that's showing us what it looks like to have a return on investment. Now, speaking of the IRS and audits and those kind of unfortunate things, at least one member of Doge visited the Internal Revenue Service offices in Washington this past Thursday. And according to some reports, this visit caused several in the IRS to become edgy and unnerved. How ironic. The Doge member made a series of requests, including a description of what each business unit in the IRS does, what it's looking to deliver on in the next 90 days, and what risks each unit currently faces, according to one of the sources. Another source said that it seemed he's just getting the lay of the land. But the request to assess or access the IRS systems is coming after Musk alleged that federal workers were defrauding taxpayers. Musk said, we do find it rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position. We're just curious as to where it came from. And by the way, it has been announced that the IRS is all of a sudden going to lay off thousands of probationary workers as soon as this week. Now, some aren't willing to wait until they're laid off. It would seem that these visits by Doge is provoking some bureaucrats to get out of Dodge. I couldn't resist. For instance, the acting head of the Social Security Administration quit her job over the weekend after butting heads with Doge because the agency was coming in to seek access to sensitive government records. Of course, there are some who oppose these efforts, and they argue that this puts the American people at risk. But then there are those like Trump and Musk who feel that The opposition to this, they just don't want to be exposed as being inept and wasteful. And so as Doge continues to investigate, in the Social Security Administration, for instance, it's been revealed that the Social Security database has more than 20 million Americans listed as being 100 years old and higher. That includes more than 3.9 million in the 130 to 139 age range. That includes more than 3.5 million in the 140 to 149-year-old range. And then there's more than 1.3 million who are supposedly between 150 and 159 years old. Interesting. Other departments in Doge's crosshairs include the Department of Defense, Treasury, Education, and there's a host of other agencies that they're looking at. Now, for the most part, congressional Republicans have gotten behind Trump, behind Musk, saying that Doge will play a significant role in cost cutting and moving toward a more efficient government. Then on the other hand, Musk and Doge have come under fire from many on the left who claim that Musk, who is unelected, should not be allowed to access government systems. There are, in fact, attorney generals for several states who have filed around 20 lawsuits in various federal courts challenging Musk's authority. Of course, they're seeking to prevent Doge from moving forward in their mission. These state attorneys allege that Doge has not been authorized by Congress and therefore should be denied access to sensitive data from these agency systems. Data they claim is being used to dismantle government initiatives and direct mass firings. They want to bar Doge and the team that's being assembled. They want to prevent them from accessing information systems at the Departments of Labor, Education, Health and Human Services, the Department of Energy, Transportation, Department of Commerce, and the Office of Personnel Management. These attorney generals have asked judges to prevent Musk and the Doge team members from firing government employees or even putting them on leave. I find it very interesting that these lawsuits are seeking to prevent someone who is unelected, and that is true, he's not elected, yet he has been appointed by the sitting president to perform a specific task. But these people want to prevent someone they say is unelected to assess whether or not the country needs thousands of unelected government employees, many of whom dictate the lives of Americans through regulations and government mandates. They want to prevent them from deciding or assessing whether these people should remain at their post. I just find that bizarre. And if they're this upset over the possibility of some employees losing their jobs or funding, imagine what would happen if Trump questioned the wisdom of entire departments, say like the Department of Education, which Trump has in fact said he wants to close. In fact, he believes that it is a big con job, that is the Education Department. And as evidence of this, the White House cites statistics that show that 70% of eighth graders were below proficient in reading, 72% were below proficient in math. 40% of fourth graders did not even meet the basic reading levels. Standardized test scores have essentially been flat for over 30 years, despite the fact that hundreds of billions, with a B, hundreds of billions of dollars are spent on government-run education. But you see, those who love big government are not going to go quietly into the night. More than a dozen House Democrats descended on the Education Department recently, demanding to meet with the acting Secretary, Denise Carter. In the words of one congressional representative, quote, "We are here to ask her, will you comply with an illegal executive order to shut down the Department of Education?" Now, just as a footnote, I'd like to point out that until 1980, there was no Department of Education. It came into being under then President Jimmy Carter. Seems to me, in terms of education, things went okay before there was a Department of Education. In fact, I would like to say that things probably went better before there was a Department of Education. So then, and this is the point, ballooned bureaucracy is under scrutiny, and it's not faring very well. DEI, these programs, they appear ready to DIE. Bureaucrats are leaving their posts while they can still get a severance package, although there have been a few who have had to be escorted out, dragging themselves out, kicking and screaming, refusing to leave their offices. And then there are these career politicians who are screaming foul because their pet projects, Elizabeth Warren, are being targeted for elimination. In short, Doge is shaking up Washington, D.C., and that will in turn, if it continues, filter down to the states as it relates to how they respond to these things. And we haven't even talked about the tariff war that's taking shape and how that might upend the status quo. Now, on a personal level, this shaking has prompted people I know to contact me because they're nervous. Some people are overwhelmed with the feeling that there's too much happening and it's happening too fast. Generally speaking, this is my opinion anyway, people don't like change, and especially when it looks as if the change includes demolition or dismantling. So, considering the nervousness of those who don't like their warm fuzzies tampered with, like Elizabeth Warren and Maxine Waters and a host of others, I can't help but wonder what is going to happen when God starts shaking everything. That is, every institution, every industry, every nation, and every individual. Yeshua said that there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms will be proclaimed on the housetops. Now, this could have a dual application. In other words, things that are true and things that are beneficial will be revealed for the sake of those who will embrace them. But also, it could mean that things that are false and detrimental are going to be revealed as well. Of course, Messiah was referring to issues far more important than whether there is a U.S. Department of Education. But then at the same time, if such agencies as this are brainwashing children with lies and doctrines of demons, for instance, promoting the nonsense that is transgenderism and gender reassignment, might he use different agents, maybe even a guy by the name of Elon Musk, to dismantle something that is harming these little ones? It's just food for thought. But the bigger picture is this. God has promised to shake up everything. And according to the writer of Hebrews, God is going to speak, and he's going to cause anything and everything to be shaken to its very foundations. He has promised, saying, "Yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also heaven." Now this, "yet once more," indicates the removal of those things that are being shaken, as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. In other words, everything that man has built, every institution, every industry, every department, every agency, every government is going to be shaken to see whether or not it is worthy to remain, which means then that everything that is built on sand is going to fall. Only that which is built on the rock will be able to withstand the storm that is coming. Now, I'm not saying that Trump or Musk and Doge are a fulfillment of this, not by a long shot, but I am suggesting that what we see occurring right now might be giving us a preview of how people, great and small, powerful and weak, how people are going to respond when God starts shaking things up. And in short, it's not looking good. It won't be good. Men and women will scramble to hold fast to that which they have deemed to be invaluable, only to find that moth and rust have already decimated their treasures. So with all of our precautions and security measures and firewalls and committees, there is nothing that can evade the scrutiny of the Almighty God. And that being said, I wouldn't try to presume how he will carry out his will in this regard. For all we know, we're seeing one of the ways that he intends to bring to light things that have been done in the dark. Now, what does this mean for you and me? Really, if you boil it down, it's just a reminder of what the Messiah said. and that is, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now, those of us who live here in America, and I would say that this is probably true in any country, we would prefer that our government was above board, thrifty, and generally concerned about the welfare of its people. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But at the same time, as believers, we are well aware that, generally speaking, mankind is corrupt, and mankind is inclined to serve its own interests rather than that of their fellow man. In spite of the arguments that some put forth that, oh, we're just looking out for the little man, we're looking out for the poor among us, for the American people, we know that many of them are just looking out for self. And so it kind of reminds me of Judas and his false concern for the poor when the woman poured expensive ointment on Yeshua's feet. You remember when this happened, he lamented that this could have been sold and the proceeds given to the poor. But according to John, he said this not because he was concerned about the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box. And he used that money box to take what was put in it for himself. And so my point then, we would be foolish to put our confidence and trust in any man or anything that man builds. There's only one that we can trust. And he has declared that everything in heaven and on earth is going to be shaken and is going to be put to the test. Yeshua said that there will be distress of nations and that men's hearts will fail them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. So if people are nervous now, how nervous are they going to be later? Now, what are you and I to do as we see this coming upon the earth? If we're believers, if we're confident in our God, then we certainly shouldn't be dismayed and distressed and nervous when these things start being shaken. Instead, we're supposed to be looking up with expectation and anticipation of our redemption, because our God is getting things ready for the King of Kings to rule and reign. And so, as the writer of Hebrews declared, we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken. And so, let us have grace by which we may serve God acceptably, with reverence and godly fear. Why? Because our God is a consuming fire. The fire of God is going to move through the earth and will consume those things that need to be removed. But at the same time, that all-consuming fire is something we should invite to move in our lives and to purge out anything that's unfruitful. And at the same time, empower us to be the people that we were born to be. So, things are being shaken up. It's probably just a preview of the fact that there's a lot more to come.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest updates from Bill and check out other podcasts available from Jacob's Tent. And join us next week on The Weekly Scroll.